Will Lane Kiffin change college football forever by making this move of leaving Ole Miss to go to a different school, LSU, right before the playoff run for his school? Now, Zach, I will let you answer that question first, and then I have a Big Ten homer take. But go ahead.
Um, I think it will change things for sure. I think it's just important. Lane Kiffin's trying to play the victim card on this. Be like, Ole Miss is not letting me coach, and it's not fair. And at the end of the day, like the chancellor gets to sit in his house, and I just want to call just bull crap on that. Like you're making this decision. You're not a victim. You have tens of millions of reasons why you are not a victim in this. This was your decision. You're walking out on your team to go for a better opportunity, which is what you have been angry about losing Quinshawn Judkins, losing David Sigmadosin because of money. And you've been vocal about it on social media over and over and over again. And your solution is to leave for money and not just for his own personal salary, but investment in LSU. Now, I get it. You want to go to a program that's going to invest more, but you've got a good thing going at Ole Miss. Why would you leave? And I think that's my frustration with Lane Kiffin is he has made this all about how he's a victim in this. He's not a victim. And I hope like will Lane Kiffin change college football forever? Yes, but my hope is that the change is is a blip rather than seismic. And here's what I mean by that. I hope it's a blip similar to Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame to LSU, where I think it feels like it signals a power shift, where it's like, well, LSU is the better job. And Marcus Freeman comes in and says, "No, you're not as good of a coach and you can't hack it." Which is what Marcus Freeman has done. He has elevated Notre Dame in a way that Brian Kelly couldn't. And Brian Kelly could not elevate LSU like he thought he could. I kind of hope that happens with Lane in that Lane goes to LSU and it's like, I finally have the resources to be awesome. And then it's like, oh, actually, it didn't work. Or it didn't work the way he thought it would, which I think is possible. But I think time will tell. I think it does change. It certainly changes it in the short term, and we're seeing it with the coaching cycle. Um, but will it be a consistent thing where playoff teams lose their coaches? Hopefully not. Hopefully not often.
Yeah, Max hits the nail on the head here, agreeing with you. Lane loves to blame everyone else for his own actions. And Max called, you didn't say this, but Max is saying that he's a spoiled child who has no sense of personal responsibility. I do think that Lane is very immature. He wants to make everything about himself. And I think at the end of the day, Lane loves to be in the spotlight. Lane wanted to have his cake, he wanted to eat it too. And at the end of the day, Ole Miss should not be blamed for not wanting somebody who just agreed to take a job someplace else to not coach their team, right? Like, if anything, Lane should be mad at LSU to say, okay, you're not willing to wait on me. Like, I
Yep.
can't I can't
Yeah.
finish coaching this team and then come to you. You don't trust me, like
Yeah.
why
It's
why is it
it's
Ole Miss the one that gets raked over the coals for this when in reality it's it's Lane and it's LSU for like one time I changed jobs. Okay, this one time I changed jobs and I with my new employer. It was a job I really cared about, and I really wanted everything to work out well at this job. Okay. And so I told the job that I would stick around until the summer to help them get somebody who could be hired and I could help train them a little bit before I left and went elsewhere. It was something that I cared about. It was not great for my family because they wanted to leave. It wasn't like bad for my family or anything, but it was like still kind of a sacrifice that my family made because we were moving different states, all this stuff. And the job that I was going to said, that's very honorable. We want that. Like, yes, stick around. We'll be fine here for 6 weeks while we wait, you know, for you to get here. And that was great. And I appreciated the job doing that. Now, the job I was leaving was, not happy that I was leaving, but at the same time, they appreciated that I stuck around. If the job that I was leaving though told me no, get out of here, I wouldn't have blamed them because I was leaving, right? So it's not the job that you're leaving's fault that they don't want you to be around after you took a job someplace else. It's the job that you're going to saying, nope, can't do that. You got to come here. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's ridiculous. I knew we would see this at some point, like a coach leaving a playoff team to get to a bigger job. I just thought we would see it with like the group of five first, right? Like I thought
Yeah.
we might see this with like Bob Chesney this year. James Madison makes the college football playoffs. Maybe they get in over the ACC or something like that, and Bob Chesney goes to UCLA. Like I think we could see something like that happen.
Yeah.
Heck, we could see something like that with Penn State happen. Anyway,
Yeah.
but
Can, can I just jump in on that thought real quick?
go ahead. Yeah.
I I don't want to insinuate that Ole Miss is blameless in this, like their administration,
No, but
right?
they're sticking
Because
up for
like
themselves. Yeah.
they're sticking up for themselves. They can invest more in their program, but I think the thing, and and this is where I really appreciate you bringing up LSU. Like in a sense, shame on LSU. Like they they could have accommodated. Like it's not bad. Here's the thing: it's not bad that Lane wants to switch jobs. I just want to be very clear. Like Lane taking another job is not the problem here. It's how and when you're
And
leaving your playoff team that like legit. Like I know they probably won't win a national championship, but it's like you're gonna get a home playoff game.
yeah. And at the end of the day, it's oh god, so were you done? Sorry.
Sorry. Well, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say at the end of the day, we can put the blame on LSU, we can put the blame on Ole Miss, we can put the blame on Lane Kiffin. The real issue here is the schedule, right? The schedule of signing day next week, right? The issue of there's a transfer portal window at the beginning of January while the playoffs are still going on, which is one of my biggest points right now. Why is nobody coming after the SEC for this kind of stuff? Like they come after the Big Ten for the college football playoff 24 teams, where they say, oh, this is going to lead to players not wanting to play because the playoffs are too big and yada, yada, yada. But we don't come after the SEC who wanted the transfer portal at the beginning of January while the playoffs were still coming on. The Big Ten was vehemently against it. They said, this is terrible. This is not good for the sport. We're going to have too much going on at one point in time. You're going to have coaches wanting to leave. I don't think they said this outright, but they definitely talked about the schedule being difficult for playoff teams and not aligning with other teams who are out there. And there was talk on like, well, actually, it's gonna be good because the playoffs team, like, it's like the NFL draft where the playoff teams don't get as much and yada yada yada. But then you have a team like Ole Miss who makes the playoffs and then they lose their coach to a bigger program, a bigger brand like LSU. So it's the double standard here. It's what I've been talking about this entire time with how the national media favors the SEC. It's not just in rankings. They favor the SEC by not putting blame on them because it was the SEC that wanted the transfer portal to not just happen in April, but they wanted it to happen in January during the playoffs as well, right? Because they don't like going through spring
It's
practice and
absurd.
having all the transfers happen after that. They want the transfers happen before all that. But you can't have the transfers happen after the playoffs, so you have to put it at the beginning of January. But nobody wants to rake the SEC for that. They just want to rake the Big Ten over the coals for trying to put together a playoff structure with 24 teams and say, players are going to quit. Players are going to quit at some point anyway. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not because the Big Ten put a 24 team playoff out there. It's because right now college football has a problem with the scheduling and other stuff. And it was the Big Ten that was against the schedule to be the way it is. Sorry, I kept talking. Go ahead.
Well, I was about to cut you off. Sorry. I just to affirm your point. The problem, the biggest problem in all of college football right now is the schedule. And it's across the board, right? Like the NFL, like your ability to declare for the NFL draft, recruiting, transfer portal window, the playoff, yeah, like all of it is just it's a mess. And it doesn't have to be. And you know, Josh Pate jokes about if I were commissioner, this is going back to our initial point that we have lamented time and time again on this show. The NCAA stinks. We need somebody to regulate this stuff because you need like all the ridiculousness about, well, we could have the transfer portal window during this time so that playoff teams can't have as much of an advantage. That's a stupid reason. Like if your goal, and this should always be the number one goal. That, like, I know the number one goal in a lot of execs' minds is money. But here should be the number one goal. How does this policy serve our student athletes and the needs of the sport? And if that is not your number one goal, get out. Because this is obscene. None of our scheduling in this sport serves the student athlete, nor does it serve the coaches. And we should be doing everything we can to do what we can, because you know what's going to happen over time? We've already seen it. You will lose your best coaches to the NFL or to retirement. We saw it with Saban. We're going to see it with Dabo. Like, I know we have our thoughts about Dabo, but like he's been a great coach. But he, like, the scheduling, the way the transfer portal is going, NIL, lack of regulation, all this stuff, it's just gonna, like, we should be doing what we can to serve student athletes and coaches, and none of it, like, we don't do it at all.
Completely agree with Bobby Mack. He says because all the SEC teams will be out of the college football playoffs by the time the portal opens in January. They won't be in it past the first and second round. Bobby Mack, I totally agree. Yeah, you have cracked the code, my friend. Thank you for the $5 super chat. That's a great little dig to take at him there. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're trying to fit too much together. They're trying to keep the schedule the way it was while also keeping some tradition and also throwing a 12-team playoff in there. It doesn't work. You have to move the season up. And really at the end of the day, like, it shouldn't be this complicated. If you put a group of people together that can actually work this, because you can't move admissions back, like you can't move the start of semesters and stuff like that back. You can't do all that. But and you can't put it on the school that, like, oh, okay, you actually need to have people be able to enroll in February. You can't do that to a school because they are still higher education, places and everything. But really, what you need to do is you just need to move the season up. All these players are not really going home all that much in the summer anyway. Most of them are sticking around campus and practicing anyway. At least the bigger schools are, right? So at the end of the day, the season needs to start like the beginning of August instead. And then that way you're actually ending the beginning of January like you were before with the BCS and the 14 playoffs rather than now. Because right now you have an issue with conference championship games, and then you have the week of the Navy Army. I mean, after the conference championship game, if you have a bye, you're not playing until like 30 days later.
Yeah.
Like that's ridiculous that you have that going on. But because of bowls and everything else, so at the end of the day, like, and you just need to move it up. And you need to not
Yeah.
have a conference championship weekend. You need to have automatic qualifiers, get back to co-champions and conferences. I know it sucks. I don't really like it either, but it would get rid of a lot of this stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, do you have anything else on this?
Nope.
Yeah. So I would love to see them moved up anyway, because more football, quicker.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say you don't necessarily need to get rid of conference championships, but you can condense the schedule. You can, or you can loop in conference championships with the playoff. which I feel like they should have done.
Well, that's what the 2014 playoff would do. It would essentially create a play-in game situation in
Yeah.
the conference championship, which to me would be so much more interesting. I pointed it out in the video. To me, a Miami Michigan matchup and conference championship weekend would be a whole lot more interesting than, I mean, not like interesting game wise, but we'd actually be playing for something.